Please welcome our host for this evening, Judy Woodruff.
Good evening, everyone. It is my great honor to host tonight's George H.W. Bush Points of Light Awards. And we know this year is extra special because we are celebrating 35 years of Points of Light. And in case you didn't know, it is the world's largest organization dedicated to volunteer service, the largest. This evening, we celebrate President Bush's vision of service as a defining American value. We know that he spoke memorably about 1,000 points of light as a metaphor for the countless acts of service and compassion that together brighten the world. In founding Points of Light, he set out to ensure that service was not only celebrated, but also sustained and multiplied over and over again. And as we look toward the next 35 years, the need for meaningful change is more essential than ever. Our country continues, as we know, to face challenges and divisions, and as this room knows more than most, this has led in the last few days to a shutdown of the federal government. I bring that up because, unfortunately, that impacted the Naval Academy Glee Club, who very much wanted to be here tonight, but they are not permitted, because of the shutdown, to perform off base. So we miss them, we're thinking about them, and I know they'll want to be back for your awards next year. We're particularly sad about this because, again, we know the connections that President Bush had during his service in the Navy as a naval aviator during World War II. But regardless, we will be reminded tonight of the power of service to unite people. That's going to be brought to life by the inspiring stories that we're going to hear, and by the commitments made to further our own service, the service of everyone in this room. You know, I covered the White House during the time when President Bush served as vice president, and I went on to cover him as a correspondent in the years following when he moved into the White House himself. All campaigns are rough, politics is rough, but George H.W. Bush overwhelmingly commanded respect from the press corps because he was a man of great character. Now, the press did look through his entire life story to make sure that they weren't overlooking something that belied the squeaky clean reputation, and they came up with a scandal. He didn't like broccoli. Tonight's celebration, though, is not just about awards. It is about carrying forward the vision of service, reminding ourselves of the power that each one of us holds to shape the future. This evening, we are going to be honoring 3 extraordinary individuals who have discovered that volunteering is more than an act of service. It is a pathway to purpose, to realizing our purpose in life. In giving themselves, they have found meaning, resilience, and a vision of how their lives can brighten the lives of others, can strengthen communities, and can help weave a stronger fabric of our society. It's in this spirit of giving and in this spirit of service that defines the leaders that we'll be honoring tonight. Their lives remind us of what's possible when purpose meets action. And with that, I am pleased to introduce a 2023 George H.W. Bush Points of Light Award honoree who could not join us in person this evening, but who wanted to share a special message with everyone.
I am delighted and honored to join you in celebrating 35 years of Points of Light. President George H.W. Bush was someone who understood the essence of America. He understood, of course, that we had the great institutions, the presidency and the Congress, and He served in all kinds of international institutions, including at the UN. But what he really understood most was that the greatness of America is in the power of its people. And that's why Points of Light, which recognized the voluntary efforts, small and large, of Americans across our country, just to try to make the world better, to try to be a point of light at the end of a tunnel for many who were in need of help, who were in need of a hand up. And Points of Light have done all of that throughout the 35 years. It's really fitting that Points of Light is a slogan, but the points of light are actually people. And so I want to congratulate also the honorees this year. And I want us all to remember to continue to take up that torch, to continue to take up the ability to light those tunnels for people who are in need. And in doing so, to remember the legacy of this extraordinary man, and I have to say, of Mrs. Barbara Bush as well, in the points of light that they designated, that they recognized, and that they continue to inspire. Thank you for letting me join you.
Please welcome the chair of the Points of Light Board of Directors, Neil Bush.
Thank you. Good evening. Please join me in thanking our amazing MC, Judy Woodruff, who as she said, covered my dad, interviewed him, covered him for many years. Judy, thank you so much for bringing your legendary grace to this stadium, to this podium, and for celebrating this enduring legacy of our father. So thank you very much for being here. Please, Judy, thank you. I'd like to acknowledge my brother Marvin, his wife Margaret, daughter Lauren Bush Lauren. There's a niece and a nephew, Ellie and Sam, somewhere in the audience here, and their spouses. You know, they're over here. There they are. Got a baby over in that table coming out soon. We're very excited. Our family was inculcated with this idea that any definition of a successful life must include service to others. My brother George, I call him Mr. President. He likes that. Has become a prolific painter. And he paints portraits, and he's published 2 books. He's got a 3rd one coming out soon. The books have been on immigrants. He paints portraits and tells their stories, and on war heroes, veterans that served under him that were wounded. He's a painter that paints with purpose. My brother Marvin has made it his daily task to find something to do for someone else. Something small, something unexpected. Marvin is probably the nicest and the most uplifting guy in this room. You should meet my brother Marvin. Daughter Lauren, since she was in college, started FEED and has caused over 128 million meals to be served through the UN World Food Program. We're extremely proud of the great work she's done. So my siblings, my kids, my nieces and nephews, our family has been living a legacy that's been passed down. And it's a simple belief that every one of us can make a difference in the lives of others. Tonight, we're here to celebrate 35 years of Points of Light, and we've got 3 amazing honorees, as Judy mentioned. One of them is Gregg Petersmeyer, an old friend of mine. Gregg took Dad's vision and put it into action 35 years ago from the White House. I'd be remiss if I didn't point out and give a loud shout out. 35 years ago, the first CEO and President of Points of Light was Marion Hurd, who's sitting right here. Marion, thank you for your pioneering service and long-standing service to Points of Light. We're very, very grateful. I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank each and every one of you that dipped deeply into your pockets to support this great cause. Thank you for your donations. I want to thank the committee that met, the steering committee that met frequently to help make this event come to life. Thank you all for your support. I want to thank our signature sponsor, Johnny Morse of the Bass Pro Shops. And I want to thank a group that kind of coalesced together to become a platinum supporter. There's a group called Gregg's Comrades in Action. Where's the Gregg Comrade in Action table? All this whole group over here. These are all folks that came to honor Gregg by pooling their funds together, and so they're having a great reunion, it appears, and we're grateful very much for your generosity and for your being here. I want to also acknowledge that while we're celebrating 35 years of Points of Light, and we've given out, Dad, I think would be surprised, 7 years after his passing, we've given out over 8,200 Points of Light awards given to everyday citizens who do extraordinary things to help people in their lives. But we're also looking into the future. This is about what's next. Dad's vision is in the hands of an extraordinary leader who shares his bold spirit and is guiding Points of Light to his next great chapter. We have a lot of board members here. I think they would agree that we have an extraordinary leader. Please help welcome to the stage the President and CEO of Points of Light, Jennifer Sirangelo.
Well, thank you, Neil. That's so kind. And to all of our board members, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for all of your support. And Neil, thanks to you and Maria for serving as co-chairs of our event tonight. Your dedication, you all can see it. This isn't the first time Neil's been choked up on the Points of Light stage, but your dedication to this mission and to carrying forward your dad's legacy, it means so much to me personally and to all of us. So thank you, Neil and Maria. And I'd like to join Neil in thanking our generous sponsors who've made this evening possible. Your partnership fuels our mission to inspire, equip, and mobilize people to make positive change through volunteering and civic engagement. As we head into America's 250th anniversary, I'm also pleased to welcome to this room to have Rosie Rios, who is chairing our America's 250 Commission and working with us. Rosie, where are you? Thank you for being here. We're very excited. Rosie, thanks. Also, we have Congressman Joe Crowley, who's on the Bipartisan Commission, America 250 Commission. Joe, thank you. We are so proud to be a part of the bipartisan work happening and being a national resource partner around America Gives and how Americans will be giving back next year as a part of our 250th. I'd also like to recognize our past George H.W. Bush Points of Light honorees. So joining Dr. Rice on screen are about 4 others who have been on this stage before and received the George H.W. Bush Points of Light Award. Would you please stand? We've got 3 or 4 of you here. Dr. Stanford, there they are, back there. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. We're so happy to have you. And tonight, as you've heard already, we celebrate 35 years of igniting change. 35 years of people stepping up, stepping forward to volunteer, strengthening their communities, solving local problems, and shaping the course of our democracy. 35 years since President Bush first called each of us to be a point of light. But as we celebrate tonight, we must be honest. People are facing real challenges: anxiety, isolation, loneliness. People are looking for hope. They're looking for the power to make a positive impact in a world that feels overwhelming. They want to believe in the strength of our communities. I know that may seem a little idealistic, but I know we can take steps forward. We can. And here's what gives me hope. We know what works. Volunteering, helping others, it works. When we volunteer, it opens our hearts and minds. It connects us to each other. We begin to trust
and to feel a sense of belonging and to contributing something greater than ourselves. We feel empowered that, yes, I can make a difference in this big world. I can be a part of the solution. And together, our civic spirit grows stronger. Nathan Gardner is a great example. He's an Air Force veteran whose life was transformed by volunteering, and he's one of our Daily Point of Light Award honorees. I got to meet Nathan last week. He spent years protecting one of our nuclear weapons facilities where he had to wear full tactical gear every day, and it took a toll on his body. And he had chronic pain and PTSD that he told me led him to feel hopeless, depressed, and it made him withdraw from social life. But fortunately, Nathan found the Veterans Service Office on the campus of Suffolk Community College on Long Island. And he learned about opportunities to be a volunteer breeder for service dogs for veterans. His own service dog, Kenzo, do you have a picture? Is there a picture of him up there? Okay, yeah, you can see Kenzo. His own service dog really inspired him to step up as a volunteer breeder. That experience changed his life for the better. Many of the things that he had been lacking, he has today because of his volunteer work: joy, positivity, and social interactions and connections with people. Nathan wanted me to share his story with you tonight because he believes in our vision for everyone to experience the transformative power of volunteering. That's why at Points of Light, we've set an ambitious goal to double the number of people volunteering in the US to 150 million people, and through our global network of affiliates by 2035. Volunteering is, you can clap for that. It's a big goal. It's a big goal. We know that volunteering is a path to renewing the spirit that has always made this country strong. Volunteering is a part of our history, it's a part of our future, and it's what makes us exceptional. And we see that movement growing around the world as a path to rebuilding the bonds that unite us, that bring us together, bonds of compassion and of shared responsibility. The Points of Light Global Network of 120 volunteer action centers in the US and in 32 countries, it's already showing us what's possible. In Los Angeles, LA Works is mobilizing volunteers alongside the city's rapid response teams to recover from the wildfires. In Brazil, Atados is innovating with skills-based volunteering to increase the impact of nonprofits through technology. In Kansas, close to my heart, Engage KC is enrolling university students in service projects that help them grow as leaders and active citizens. And these are just a few examples from our network who they mobilize 4 million volunteers a year. Tonight, we have 2 of those local affiliates in the room with us from this Washington metro area. Lisa and Jennifer, would you please stand and let us thank you for the work you do every day. There's Lisa, there's Jennifer. Thank you. And thanks to our donors, including corporate partners like Lowe's, who you are going to hear a lot more about tonight. This year, Points of Light invested $14 million in cash grants to our global network and local nonprofits. That allowed us to create pathways for people like Nathan to connect with purposeful volunteering in their neighborhoods. And we provided over $400,000 in scholarships to local nonprofit leaders like Lisa and Jennifer to strengthen their local organizations. Your generosity tonight will help us to continue to support these local change makers. Last year alone, our global network mobilized 8.6 million hours of volunteer service around the world. And still, nearly half of volunteer slots went unfilled. Imagine what we could do if we doubled the amount of people volunteering. Imagine the communities we could strengthen, the young people we could inspire, the trust we could rebuild. Imagine what's possible if everyone here tonight helps light the way. Because volunteering isn't just about helping others. That's a great part of it. But it's about shaping who we are as neighbors, as communities, as a nation and a world. And we can only do this together. To double volunteering, to spark a new era of civic renewal, we need every point of light in this room to join us. The next 35 years start here, and they start with each of you. So thank you for being here tonight.
As we celebrate Points of Light's 35th anniversary, please enjoy this message from honorary co-chairs President George W. Bush, President Bill Clinton, and President Barack Obama.
George H.W. Bush spoke of those who illuminate a path forward and give to others.
Relationship builders, servant leaders, problem solvers. He called them points of light.
There are people who listen and say, I can help. People who show up not because it's easy, but because it matters.
They lean in, offering empathy and an outreached hand. We call them points of light.
They are called to action through compassion, gratitude, or the pursuit of a greater purpose. They give of themselves, even when their tank is empty, driven by the opportunity to deeply connect and to make a positive change. Inspired to strengthen community and ensure everyone has what they need. We call them points of light.
They seek to uphold the inherent dignity of every human being by simply being there when needed, lighting a path hand in hand. We call them points of light.
They're conveners, bringing people together to meet needs and find solutions. They look for ways to lift people up, help them discover their strengths, and realize their full potential.
These are people in our communities leading by example, quietly living by the values that empower and inspire others. Block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, life by life. Their work invites others to join in, to help make a change. We call them points of light.
My father famously spoke of 1,000 points of light. He believed that a life of service is a life of meaning and adventure.
He believed we each have a gift.
And responsibility to share our gifts with our neighbors in need.
We can all be points of light.
Wow. I just would ask each one of you to pause for a moment and reflect on what we just heard. Our three living former presidents, who among them served, almost a quarter century in the nation's most powerful office, paying tribute to their fellow president, their dear friend, and in the case of President George W. Bush, his dad. All three lifting up his legacy and his dedication to the idea that each of us can make a difference. Let's give these presidents and what they represent a hand. At this moment in our nation's history, especially, what we just heard is a message we can appreciate and take to heart. When people come together to serve, and we just heard this from Jennifer, they practice the very skills that democracy requires: listening, collaborating, respecting differences, and working for the common good. President Bush recognized these qualities are essential to our nation's strength, and he believed that they must be celebrated and encouraged in every community. Our first award this evening holds profound meaning for Points of Light. The George H.W. Bush Lifetime of Service Award honors individuals whose lives embody a steadfast commitment to others, people who not only serve, but who inspire generations to follow their example. Gregg Petersmeyer is such a leader. Gregg was a trusted advisor to President Bush, helping lay the foundation for the modern service movement in America by establishing Points of Light and the Daily Point of Light Award. As the founding director of the White House Office of National Service, Gregg has dedicated his career to advancing civic purpose and voluntary action. These are foundational elements of a healthy democracy. His faith in people, in communities, and in the transformative power of service has never wavered. With humility and remarkable conviction, Gregg has spent his life lighting the way for others to serve. So as Points of Light marks its 35th anniversary, it's both fitting and deeply meaningful to honor Gregg Petersmeyer with the George H.W. Bush Lifetime Service Award.
If you look back at the work President Bush started, really the one idea that was at the center was light. Obviously, light is terribly powerful as an idea. It has a universal, symbolic, deeply human connection. It's sort of elemental to life. It evokes a kind of moral orientation. And it's not just light generally, it's light in yourself, in the form of gifts and what you're capable of giving to other people. And it's also the power of discovering light in yourself and in other people. I think I learned the importance of just helping other people by watching my own parents. My father was of that generation that had gone through the Depression as a child and the war. I think they just naturally had lived the value of people helping one another and serving together. I think the single most powerful driver of volunteering is seeing lives change. And it's not just the life of the person who you're trying to help, but it's your own life changed by it. When my first wife passed away, it reoriented some of what I began to realize was very important to me. President Bush had spoken in his inaugural about this need for Americans to rely on one of the great qualities of America, which was people voluntarily helping one another. And he'd called them points of light. So I think people really stepping in to do the work and then be seen as leaders was really at the heart of the idea of telling stories about what became known as points of light. I think that people who really make a difference do that because of the way they have decided to find meaning and purpose in their own lives. And they don't see themselves as heroes. I had a meeting with President Bush 10 days after he was president to talk about how this work might unfold. I said there's really just one idea that I think needs to be at the heart of what you're about in this work. And he said, what is that? And it was on the last page of a little presentation I was giving him. From now on in America, any definition of a successful life must include serving others. And when we began to name the daily points of light, that was always the last sentence of the press release coming out of the White House. So there were 1,020 press releases over the course of 4 years. And at the end, it said that this point of light is demonstrating what President Bush believes, which is any definition of a successful life must include serving others. I think people who engage in volunteering regularly, it just becomes a habit that is a little bit like other daily habits in life. And I think it becomes a habit because people get real benefit from it. They need and want the friendships that come. They feel that their lives are being more purposeful. It's avoiding boredom, which is a big problem for people. So I think that those are some of the reasons.
I've spoken of 1,000 points of light, of all the community organizations that are spread like stars throughout the nation doing good. The old ideas are new again because they're not old. They are timeless. Duty, sacrifice, commitment, and a patriotism that finds its expression in taking part in pitching in.
Welcome 2025 George H.W. Bush Lifetime of Service Award honoree, Gregg Petersmeyer.
And joining us on stage are a few of the 8,000 Daily Point of Light Award honorees who are here this evening. Come on up.
Thank you all very much. I'm honored and grateful to receive this George H.W. Bush Award, named for a president I served and a man I loved. I want to thank those who have contributed to this evening with their work and financial support, and for those of you here, including my family and several of my oldest and best friends. Thank you, too, for this reunion of White House colleagues who, in their early 20s, 35 years ago, helped President Bush get this started. And they're all sitting over here, all 9 of them. It's the first time they've been together in 30 years. And they're as crazy tonight as they were back then. I also want to thank Neil and Jennifer and the Points of Light board and staff who lead this important organization. As for this award itself, in my mind, it's less about my achievement than my good fortune. My own life has been constantly changed by those around me helping people, starting with my father and extending to others, including some in this room, especially my wife, Julie. This is a confusing and difficult time in America and the world right now. Grievances are turning into dark passions at scale that are dehumanizing and increasingly dangerous. 35 years ago, when Points of Light began, it was a very different time. Now, in this deeply divided time, we have a more important role to play than ever before. It comes through in how it unites us. Think of what you saw and the words the former presidents in their video used to define Points of Light. Can we assume that the people in that video have different political beliefs? For sure. Were they all of different ages, genders, races, ethnic backgrounds, religions, occupations, regions of the country, and levels of wealth and power? Yes, yes, and yes. But here is what was not different about them. First, they all believe in human light, captured by I can help, I can make a difference, I am needed. If it's to be, it's up to me. Second, everyone's humanity and dignity are equal. And third, they are using their freedom to give to another and to receive from another, no exceptions. Over the last 35 years, actually 10,718 very specific points of light stories have been told about people in the United States, in the United Kingdom, and across 56 Commonwealth nations. It's a staggering number. The stories are primarily read as stories of individuals confronting identified problems with actions that can often be measured. Meals delivered, tons of trash cleared from a river, reading levels improved, disaster victims sheltered. Each is a measure of objective progress made by individuals and communities, and none of it should be minimized. But today, when we are being pulled apart by the stories in our minds about one another, our objective progress in different areas is no longer enough. We need to see and make more visible otherwise invisible light that exists in every human being. That's because as people see light in one another, it changes what they assume and believe about another person. It changes the story in their mind. This is true the more different two people are to start with. This is the story within those thousands upon thousands of points of light stories. The story of light that cannot be seen. It also means that in every individual, there is new light to be discovered. And in discovery, the person is no longer invisible, no longer alone. In this sense, your worth is not proven by what you own or show, but by how you help others feel seen. What bonds us is not our shared opinions or being flattered or being flattened into one or another identity category. Instead, what bonds us is the light we see in one another and the effort it takes with that light to enter and stay in someone else's life. Thomas Merton was right when he wrote, "In the end, it is the reality of personal relationships that saves everything." Although it's true that today we are deeply influenced by technology-enabled devices, this does not change the fact that each individual carries their own gifts in abundance, ways of seeing, caring, and giving that can define their ways of being with and for other people in the world. But make no mistake, in whomever and with whomever those gifts seem most invisible, that's where we need to be. For example, some people believe that it's unfair to ask a 15-year-old living in poor, even unspeakable circumstances to give anything to anybody until society solves his problems. Yes, we have undeniable responsibilities for the well-being of every child in our country. But if that young person is not told that he or she has a gift to give and is not asked to give it, they will come to believe that they have nothing to give, or that if they do, it is unwanted. Again, what we feel, assume, and believe about someone else, including that 15-year-old, is based on the story we tell ourselves about them. To the extent the invisible light in that individual becomes visible, we will tell ourselves a different story, and that can make all the difference. This is a time for many people and institutions where trust is lacking and assumptions about one another divide us. But there's always been more to the American story. Let me close with what Jonathan Meacham, the Pulitzer Prize-winning biographer and historian, said at President Bush's state funeral. Quote, "Abraham Lincoln's Better Angels of Our Nature and George H.W. Bush's 1,000 Points of Light are companion verses in America's national hymn. For Lincoln and Bush both called on us to choose the right over the convenient, to hope rather than to fear, and to heed not our worst impulses, but our best instincts." Thank you again for this wonderful award.
Thank you, Gregg, for those remarks that I think we all want to reflect on this evening and take with us in the days to come. And I think the fact that they were spoken here in Washington, D.C., in the nation's capital at this moment, makes them even more powerful and words that we want to share as we go out and do the work that each one of us does. I just want to, before we go to dinner, and I know everybody's ready, I just have a quick personal note that links back to the start of Gregg's time working in the White House under President Bush. It was January the 19th, 1989. My husband, Al Hunt, and I had the honor of hosting the then president-elect and First Lady-to-be, Barbara Bush, on the night before his inauguration as president. It was a night when, despite a million other things on their calendar, they dropped by a gathering of news reporters, of all things, at our home in Washington. It was the honor of our lives to have them spend time with our scruffy group of reporter friends, all dressed up for a change in black tie, cleaned up a little bit. It is fair to say it is not for the faint of heart to step into a den of reporters. With so many things on his mind, President Bush made sure that night to autograph a card for each of our 2 children, aged 7 and 2. I never had the heart to tell President Bush that due to sibling rivalry, the next day, the 7-year-old crossed out the president's autograph to the 2-year-old. Now let's take a break and enjoy dinner together.
35 years ago, Points of Light was founded and a volunteering movement began.
Our nation faces a wide variety of challenges, but the solution to each problem that confronts us begins with an individual who steps forward and who says, "I can help," that no limits can hold back people determined to make a difference.
Volunteers are often seen in the big moments, after the storm, during the fire, when everything feels lost. But their impact runs deeper, because when service becomes a habit, it becomes something more. It becomes a culture.
Points of Light is well positioned to lead a movement to increase volunteering. Our North Star is to connect people to their meaning and purpose through volunteering and civic engagement. We believe that unique combination is what's needed today to change hearts and minds.
Volunteering makes us better, as people, as communities, and as a society.
A lot of times we think that with volunteering, we're just benefiting others, but in reality, I've learned so much from my experience volunteering, and I feel it's the most rewarding thing.
There's a gift in volunteering. You feel really good, and it makes a difference. Do something good, feel something real.
But as the world faces new challenges, volunteers are needed more than ever.
the challenges that are facing all nonprofits right now. The funding landscape and the philanthropic landscape are really quite debilitating. And at the same time, communities are struggling with divides, political, generational, and cultural divides that make it harder to work towards shared goals.
Volunteers power a third of the nonprofit workforce, but more than half of those roles go unfilled. It takes resources to recruit and train volunteers. Unfortunately, less than 1% of funding goes to supporting efforts to fill these positions. That's not a funding gap, that's a crisis.
The UPS Foundation is investing in Points of Light. They are the lead organization that is mobilizing volunteers. They are providing volunteers with the opportunity to unlock their passion, be a change maker, and help to solve some of the critical needs that communities are facing. And it's been a perfect partnership.
I have seen so many people's lives changed because of their service experience, or because they've gotten in contact with a new person or a new neighborhood, or learned more about a new cause.
Imagine a world where a culture of volunteering is the way of life for everyone, where twice as many people take action as a regular part of their lives. That's the power of volunteering.
Welcome back to the stage, our host, Judy Woodruff.
So many important messages packed into that video. I know everybody was paying close attention, and as I listened to President Bush at the beginning of it, everything he was saying was as relevant today as it was when he spoke the words that he did in the 1980s, in the 1990s, and on throughout his life. As we reflect on President Bush's vision, we can't say enough about how he was one of the first to stress the importance of giving back, of finding ways for individual Americans to contribute to their fellow Americans. That early vision that he had, the early legacy he established, lives on powerfully in efforts like the one later this week. It's a summit on national service being hosted by the Carnegie Corporation of New York. The goal of this foundation's work is to chart a path forward for developing the service system in America for the rest of the 21st century. Jennifer Sirangelo, your CEO, is going to be taking part. I'm glad to say I will be there too, for what the conveners hope will be a pivotal gathering, a breakthrough event. And if anyone deserves credit for being an inspiration for efforts like this one, it is President George H.W. Bush. Now, a moment ago, we did hear about Gregg Petersmeyer. It was his vision that helped create a lasting way to recognize individuals whose service strengthens our communities, and that was, of course, and is the Daily Point of Light Award. Through this award, Points of Light first met Dynasty Taylor, whose service journey continues to inspire. Dynasty has faced challenges with courage and with resilience, turning her experience into a powerful force for others. In 2014, she founded Dynasty's United Youth Association, or DUYA, to uplift youth in Los Angeles through educational, career, and mental health services. Her work is creating ripple effects, transforming young lives and inspiring volunteers to discover new purpose for their own futures. Dynasty is a shining example of what President George H.W. Bush envisioned when he spoke of 1,000 points of light, spread like stars throughout the nation, doing good. Dynasty, your light is unmistakable, and it helps others find their own.
I grew up in Baldwin Village, and I lived on a street where there was like multiple buildings, and that is where I started to teach students how to read and write. I would sit them on the stairs, and then we would kind of like tear out pages from books, but that was my first encounter with learning how to kind of create an impact in the community. I didn't even know I was giving back. I just enjoyed working with children, and I enjoyed like working with people and giving back that way. The community I grew up in was a poverty-stricken environment, so there was not a lot of hope. There was a lot of single-parent families. There was a lot of fathers who were not present, and we were kind of centered around a lot of substance abuse. So therefore, I felt that it was important at the age of 10 to do something that just made people feel good, and I think that gave us something to live for. It gave us something to look forward to, and just to see the smiles on people's faces, the interaction, and just the positivity in this type of environment was really important at that time. When I finally made it to graduation, it was a reflective moment that happened to me that said, a lot of people are not gonna make it here. And it wasn't by accident that I made it here. But it's no way that I'm just gonna be successful and not go back and help others do the same. First, it was just like, oh, I wanna cultivate this learning environment. Now it's like more direct. My mission is to empower underserved youth to rise from poverty to prosperity. So as the organization grew, I was growing along with it. And that kind of cultivated this idea of creating this nonprofit. So you had a few nonprofits back at that time. You had the YMCA. That was one of the most popular nonprofits, and then you had the Boys and Girls Club. And what I noticed is that we needed more culturally responsive programs. We needed people with more lived experience that can help cultivate programs that were more meaningful and accessible to the populations we were serving. We've seen a lot of like savior mentalities coming into the community to support our students, and we needed more people that look like the people that they usually see every day. So I felt like because of my trials and tribulations, I thought I'd be the perfect person to come through and be able to help. I didn't have the mentality of coming to save. It was all about transformation. It was all about being the role model that can give people perspective to see themselves differently and see the world differently. Volunteering has been a change for my life. It's given me purpose, and it allows me to touch other people to also give them purpose. You're basically changing the mentality around what leadership actually looks like, regardless of what age you are, and you're also changing the mentality around just having a career to actually give back to your community and do something more positive. Points of Light shows that volunteering is a necessity and is necessary for people to thrive. They connect to a lot of organizations, rather if they're for-profit or nonprofit, to be able to do the same thing. And I think it just creates a positive chain reaction of folks giving back. It is amazing that I have been chosen to do the work that I am doing. It is amazing to see the impact of other people who want to do great things. That is the real humanitarian connection, is people coming to this world and finding out who they are, what their purpose is, and then using that purpose to basically give back to other people who need to find that as well. That is how we continue the cycle. If we're not doing this, then how are we actually leading? And you don't have to be a CEO to lead. You just have to have a good heart and want to see great in other people outside of yourself.
Welcome 2025 George H.W. Bush Points of Light Award honoree, Dynasty Taylor.
Wow. Good evening. I want to start by personally thanking each of you for being here tonight to celebrate us. I stand here today on the shoulders of every volunteer who has made a difference through acts of service and kindness. Growing up, my parents were not actively present in my life. I relied heavily on the people and mentors around me, such as my grandmother, my church community, my teachers, and the volunteers and internships that shaped my path. It's true what they say. It takes a village to raise a child. And through Do Ya, that village now supports over 750 youth every year. Guided by people with lived experiences from our own community. Once upon a time, I was lost. I was hopeless, with no direction for where my life was going. But through my volunteer experiences in college, I found my light. This light has carried me forward ever since, showing me the way to founding Do Ya, a nonprofit dedicated to empowering underserved youth to rise from poverty to prosperity through education, workforce development, and mentorship. I learned early from my grandmother the power of human connection, how she would greet everyone she encountered, from the mailman to the post office clerk to the trash collector to even a stranger on the street. And she's actually here with me tonight. Along with my middle school sweetheart. She showed me that every act of kindness, no matter how small, matters. Even when my parents could not be there, her love and nurturance reminded me that support and guidance comes in many forms. Each person in this room has, in your own way, extended a hand when it was needed, offered grace to someone facing challenges, and given your own time and energy to lift others up. No act of service ever goes unnoticed. Every humanitarian effort contributes to a better world, a better humanity. Volunteering is no longer just an idea for us. It's necessary. It is a responsibility, it is an obligation. If we want to build stronger communities and build futures for the next generations, this is what we will have to do. Thank you all again for taking the time, which is one of the most valuable currencies we have, to recognize Do Ya's work. And may we all continue to carry the light of volunteering, to help others find their light, and to spread the light across our communities and across the world. Last but not least, because when we shine together, the world will shine brighter. Thank you.
Please welcome Points of Light board member Nikki Clifton, President, Social Impact, and the UPS Foundation.
Good evening, everyone. Congratulations to all of our honorees tonight. I'm Nikki Clifton, and I am proud to serve on the Points of Light board. But tonight, I want to speak on my personal experience about why volunteering has helped to transform my life and how I know it works to transform the lives of others. There is a quote that I love from Shirley Chisholm that says, "Service is the rent we pay for the privilege of living on this earth." These words perfectly capture what I believe and what has been modeled for me throughout my life. Service has always been part of my family's story. My parents modeled it for me, and now my husband and I, who are here tonight, my husband's at the table with me tonight, are raising our children to understand that showing up for others isn't just something that you do, it is who you are. Volunteer service is not an abstract idea, it is personal. I'm the daughter of a middle school principal and a university dean who lived their lives as quiet, consistent servants in my hometown of Athens, Georgia. My parents understood that giving back wasn't optional. It was your duty. I saw it in the ways that we volunteered together as a family, through our church and through youth organizations like 4-H and Girl Scouts that shaped my childhood. We've got the leader of Girl Scouts Nation's capital in the house, so. But I also learned that after my parents passed away, I learned how much they quietly gave when I wasn't watching. They mentored students, they joined civic organizations, they advocated for change in their community. They were waymakers, not for applause, not for recognition, but because service was simply in their DNA. That example left an indelible impression on me, and now as a wife and mother, I feel a deep responsibility to pay it forward and carry that not only in my own life, but in the lives of my children. My daughter Olivia, who is here with me tonight and is working on her Girl Scout Gold Award, is living proof. She's living proof that when you intentionally embed service in a family, the legacy continues. And that's why I love Points of Light. I believe that every act of service, no matter how big or how small, deeply matters. And together, I believe we can multiply those acts into a force that changes the world. Let's be honest, tonight our world right now feels quite heavy and divided. The challenges that are in our country are real, but they leave many of us asking, how can I possibly make a difference? What can I do from where I sit? And the answer we've heard tonight is simple: volunteer. Get out, mingle, get into your communities, and make a difference and give back. That's how we come together, and it's how we heal. Volunteering transforms the lives of the recipient and the lives of the giver. For the recipient, it means being seen. It means knowing that someone cares about you and that someone's stepping up to lend a hand. For the giver, volunteering lets you walk in someone else's shoes. It helps you develop empathy and connects you with a mission that is broader than yourself. That is the light that we are celebrating tonight. Many of you have already given generously. Maybe you've purchased a table. Maybe you've given personal gifts in honor of our honorees and our 35th anniversary. Your commitment is the reason that we are here, and we are deeply grateful. And so if you're here tonight as a guest of someone else or as a guest of a company who's purchased a table, we still want you to feel invited to join in this collective moment. Tonight is not an obligation. It's an opportunity to add your light if you feel so inspired. So if you're feeling moved, I'm going to make it simple. I invite you to join me right now in supporting this mission that I love and believe in so deeply. And we've been so inspired tonight. I've got a phone right here with me, and I invite you to take out yours too. On the screen, you'll see a QR code. You can scan it very easily. It's quick, and it gives us an opportunity to do all of this together. So take out your phones, scan the QR code that's on the side of the screens, and I'll wait for you to join in. I see Neil taking out his phone, scanning the QR code. That's leadership. Thank you, Mr. Board Chair. Appreciate that. I told my daughter tonight, you've got allowance in your bank, scan the code. all right? Some of you may feel moved to give $100 tonight, others $500, $1,000, $10,000, whatever strikes your fancy. No amount is too small or too big. Every amount matters, and every gift makes a difference. On behalf of Points of Light, thank you so much for your generosity. Thank you for being here and for the countless ways that you've already given and that you're helping us live out this mission. All of the dollars that you're investing tonight and going forward make this work possible. It's what allows us to equip the organizations and the volunteer service experiences and create the change that truly transforms lives. The codes will be open tonight and hereafter. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to serve in front of you. And as you continue to enjoy tonight's company, I invite you to share your own stories about and ask one another, what's your favorite volunteer experience? Why do you love to serve? What's a favorite memory that you carry from volunteering? Because when we share those stories at tables around just like these, the movement for service continues to grow even stronger. Thank you so much and have a wonderful night.
Thank you, Nikki. That was inspiring. I see people all over the room with their phones up and pointing in the right direction and whipping out those credit cards. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. And I love that invitation to share stories. In my work, I will tell you, I have seen how powerful stories can be. They don't just describe what's happening, they help us understand one another. For almost the last 3 years and into next year, I'm traveling the country for the PBS NewsHour, interviewing ordinary Americans and community leaders in an effort, first, to understand the sources of our current deep political divide, and then more recently to highlight efforts being made to bring people together, to sit down and to listen to one another. Because we know that it is much harder to hate someone when we know that person. It has been a great gift for me to be able to tell these stories, which have been airing since early 2023. Every other Wednesday on the PBS NewsHour, you can find it on our website. But stories like the Journeyman Project in Raleigh, North Carolina, where a group of young men realized that in the midst of growing isolation and estrangement, from education, from family, from the workforce, by males in their teens and 20s and older, there was a desperate need to reach out to them to try to help them form connections. Or the bridging group called Civity that stepped in at the invitation of community and business leaders. Civity is founded in California, but they were invited by leaders in Providence, Rhode Island, to help them talk across political divides about how to address local problems like the affordable housing shortage and the need for more mental health services. Telling these stories is an important way to get the message across to the public, and that is exactly what Points of Light has tried to do and is trying to do and will continue to do. In that vein, we can observe that private companies are not just hubs of industry. They are centers of community. And when they are functioning well, connected to the people and places that they serve, we know that the values of a company's leader set the tone for that culture of impact. You may know Marvin Ellison as the global CEO of Lowe's Home Improvement. But I am told that what most defines him are the values instilled in him by his parents, by his deep faith, and by his connection to the 300,000 red vest associates at Lowe's and the communities they serve. Marvin believes that there is a genuine passion for helping when people identify a need, and he says he is proud to be part of a movement that brings those values to life every day.
Yes, I grew up in this little small town in Western Tennessee, and we didn't have a lot of financial means, but the one thing that my parents taught us is that even though we didn't have a lot, there were other people who had less than we did. If someone had an issue at home, if they had medical bills they couldn't pay, you would go and volunteer to help out. It was just part of what I thought you were required to do as just a human being, as a Christian, as a citizen, and so it's been a part of who I've been my entire life. One of the things I pray every morning is for God to give me the ability to do something good today to make a difference in somebody's life in a positive way. But every individual can make a difference if you're just willing to take action. One of the things we talk about is what are we doing to make the places where we live and work better. So we have this great program, we call it Lowe's Hometown, where we basically issue 100 grants every year to just improve community spaces. This year, we had 5,000 applications. We had to choose 100 projects. We need organizations like Points of Light to help us not only to understand the need out there, but also to help us to kind of take these requests and narrow it down. Partnerships like this are incredibly meaningful for us because it gives us the ability to make sure that we get it right and that we are using these dollars wisely so we can make the greatest impact to the highest number of people. A couple years ago, I had a grant request from my hometown, my literal hometown in Brownsville, Tennessee. The city hall had come under disrepair. We were able to donate the funds. I was able to go out and volunteer, and my dad was a part of that. I was able to go to my house. He still lives in the same house I grew up in, and I put him in a Lowe's sweater, so he and I had the exact same sweater on. We work on the project. My dad is there, the mayor is there, whom I went to high school with. This is small town America. The owner of the local newspaper reaches out and wants to know if there's a photo that he can share. Somehow he gets the photo of me and my dad both wearing these Lowe's sweaters, and guess what ended up on the front page of the paper? My dad rarely mails me anything, so I get an envelope, big envelope, and he has a copy of the front page of the newspaper. He and I both on it, both dressed the same, with a simple caption and a note he listed, and that is, now there's no argument who looks better. In this really competitive environment for talent, companies that have active volunteerism, that are committed to philanthropy, companies that stand for something, that matters in this generation as much as the compensation package. I want any Lowe's associate, if someone asks them where they work, I want them to have a lot of pride and a lot of confidence to say that they work for Lowe's. I just want people to hold their heads high when they say they work for this company because of the things that we're doing to make a positive difference.
Welcome 2025 George H.W. Bush Points of Light Award honoree, Marvin Ellison.
Good evening. Well, it's an honor, it's a blessing to be here tonight. As you saw in the video, I've had a wonderful personal journey, and every day I thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for favor, grace, and blessings. And my wife and I will oftentimes say that it's a blessing to be a blessing. And so standing here tonight as a recipient of the George H.W. Bush Points of Light Award, it is a humbling and it's a deeply meaningful event. And President Bush believed that a single act of service could create a ripple strong enough to brighten entire communities. And to be recognized in connection with that vision is a significant honor. I'd like to thank so many people. I'd like to thank Jennifer. I'd like to thank Neil, I'd like to thank the Bush family and the Points of Light organization for the recognition and also for carrying this wonderful mission forward. And I know that this is a celebration of individuals who have made a difference, but to me, this is not an individual award. As chairman and CEO of Lowe's, I'm blessed, as you heard, to lead an incredible company of 300,000 employees that we call associates who are committed to uplifting communities nationwide. So tonight, this award represents the wonderful associates that I am fortunate to lead. So to that end, I would like to recognize the Lowe's associates and leaders who are in attendance tonight, if they would please stand to be recognized. Thank you all. We got a lot of payroll here tonight, so I'm not sure. As I've said before, I don't know who's running the company because they're all here. I also want to acknowledge my beautiful wife, Sharon, who's here tonight. Sharon and I have been together, believe it or not, for 39 years. And God has blessed us with 2 wonderful children, but more importantly, He's blessed us to have the ability to be a blessing to others. So Sharon, would you please stand as well? Thank you. And no, she was not 5 years old when we met. She's just not aging for some reason. So Lowe's has a long history, which is a good thing. Lowe's has a long history of doing really important work in the community. So when I arrived at the company in 2018, I thought, how can I help fuel this burning desire to help? That's what inspired us to start this Hometowns program that we launched a few years ago. The idea was to tap into our company's passion for giving back to the places where we live and work. And through volunteerism to grant funding, we thought we could do something really special. So we formed this crucial partnership with Points of Light to get this new philosophy to the community giving off the ground. Our stores teams and our associates poured their hearts into these projects, forming long-term connections throughout their communities. And as you saw in the video, thanks to this initiative, I had a chance to return to my hometown in Brownsville, Tennessee, to be part of that City Hall renovation project. We turned that space into a new home for the police department and for first responders. And as you saw, I toured the site with my dad, who still thinks he looks better than I do. And I have to agree with him, he does, back in my hometown. That guy I met outside was my old football coach. I literally hadn't seen him since graduation day. And he heard I was in town, he stopped by. And so it's hard for me to put into words how impactful that event was. So if you fast forward, Lowe's Hometown program has become the company's most impactful initiative ever. We scaled it and we made it a 5-year, $100 million commitment through 2026. So each year we complete, as you heard, 100 community-nominated projects, but then we complete more than 1,700 projects selected by our heroic associates. It's been an amazing program, and I can tell you right now, folks, we're just getting started. So listen, I'm here tonight for every associate who picked up a shovel at a playground bill. I'm here for every associate who swung a hammer to build a bed for a child sleeping on the floor. I'm here for every associate who applied a coat of paint at a Boys and Girls Club. I'm here for every associate who volunteered their personal time to assist with recovery after a natural disaster. I'm here for every associate who tackles critical home repairs for a senior citizen or a disabled veteran. That work in the community is what we do best at Lowe's, and we're proud of that. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge some really special guests we have here tonight. We have leaders from 3 organizations here in D.C. that receive grants through this hometown program. We help Horton's Kids expand their reach to uplift under-resourced youth with a new community center. We supported House the Roof in creating a safer housing for women and families recovering from trauma and homelessness. And we partnered with Rebuilding Together to restore community gardens that are now providing fresh food. So let's have the leaders of those 3 wonderful organizations to stand, please. Thank you all. So these are the stories of real impact that Lowe's is blessed to be a part of. And starting in 2025, we asked ourselves, how can we raise the bar a little higher from a philanthropy perspective and community impact? So this year, we're delivering 10 million square feet of impact. It's just a new way to measure the work that we have always done to support places that we call home. And it's a promise to our neighbors that we will always stand with them in times of need. And I take this promise seriously because philanthropy has always been a part and it's been core to who I am and how I lead. It's how I was raised. As you saw in the video, I came from a big family. I'm the middle child of 7. So growing up in that small town, I could hear my dad say that a clenched fist cannot give nor receive. So I lived my entire life with an open hand because I always understood the importance of giving to others. And I'm blessed that my wife feels the same way. My parents were so instrumental in my success, and they taught me to never let your neighbor go without, even though I was 6 years old before we had indoor plumbing. So we went without many times, but my parents would always say, somebody has it worse than us. So I've carried that lesson throughout my entire life and my entire career. So in closing, at Lowe's, we have a very simple belief. We believe if we give our associates an exceptional place to work, provide our customers with a great place to shop, and make the communities where we live and work better, we will create shareholder value. Therefore, when help is needed in the community, we show up. That's who we are, that's who we will always be. So thank you again for this incredible honor representing the hard-working, wonderful associates at Lowe's. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marvin Ellison. That was so inspiring. I have several things to say. One is we love the picture of you and your dad and the matching shirts. The organizations you identify in Washington, D.C., I live in Washington, D.C., they are all amazing. So it's so wonderful to see that partnership. And then the other thought I have is wouldn't it be great if more companies did exactly what Lowe's is doing? I think what strikes us most tonight about the extraordinary leaders we are celebrating here are the values that they embody. Integrity in standing by their communities, empathy in truly seeing others, compassion in showing up for neighbors in need. These are not just personal virtues, they are the qualities that sustain healthy communities and then a strong democracy. As we've heard tonight, Points of Light is steeped in history. It carries an incredible legacy forward. And yet, we know this is only the beginning of making an even greater impact, creating positive change for individuals, for communities, and yes, for entire society. President Bush once said, "A volunteer is a person who can see what others cannot see, who can feel what most do not feel." Often, such gifted people do not think of themselves as volunteers, but as citizens, citizens in the fullest sense, partners in civilization. It is going to take all of us to build a future where volunteering is once again at the center of American life. And with Points of Light leading the way, that future is within our reach. On behalf of Points of Light, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to all of you, our honorees, our sponsors, volunteers, and everyone here and beyond who believes in the power of service and in responding to the urgent needs we face across this great country. You are what makes this world brighter. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's been such an honor to be with you, celebrating 35 remarkable years. Good night.
Thank you for joining us this evening to celebrate 35 years of Points of Light. Have a wonderful evening and keep shining your light. Good night, everyone.